What is up, Waffle Gang? I do hope you are well. My name is Mark, and today we're checking out some more r/am I the butthole. If you'd like to skip the initial waffle, timestamps are in the description and along the timeline below as always. But if you are new here, please consider hitting that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too. And yesterday we did have a couple of new members. We had Michelle over on Patreon, thank you so much. And we also had Sydney Mouse join us and Erica Jacobson with the rejoin. Thank you so much for your love, support, and time out of your day as well. It means the absolute world. And let's crack on. With today's stories. Much love, guys. And this first one was a request from someone on Twitter, from Beto, saying, am I the arsehole for having an outdoor party when my neighbours had a reality TV film crew over, ruining their chances to be on TV? I live in a house that was split into 3 apartments. I've been planning a big party for months since my friends and I got the vaccine. It'd be a big backyard party. A few weeks ago, I told the other renters in my building that I'd be throwing a party in our shared backyard, and they were both welcome to come hang out and bring friends. They both took me up on it, and the plan for the party grew, since between them, they were bringing an extra 10 or so friends. So overall, we're expecting 30 or so people over for an afternoon barbecue going into the night on Saturday. In the morning, some of my friends and the other people from my building and I started setting up the backyard, and a guy came over and asked if we could stay inside because they are filming. I said no, sorry, we have plans to have friends over and we had to get ready. He got frustrated with us and said that their company had sent out a month notice asking all the neighbours to accommodate filming, and that he had heard back from everyone that it was okay. So my building mates and I were like, we never heard about any filming, we really didn't know what he was talking about. I also told the guy that I don't want to be on camera and my guests will not want to be on camera either. This wasn't just me being difficult. I and a number of my friends are in cybersecurity industry and are actually bothered by that. We asked how many people would be over and I said maybe 30. He said something about not being able to film at all in those conditions and having to talk to his manager. Before we heard anything back from him, a lot of our friends started coming in. Then another man came over and talked to some of my guests, but didn't end up finding me. It turns out he was the manager and was trying to ask us to be quiet and inside for a while they filmed, and some of my friends were just like, I don't think that's going to happen. And yeah, I think more people are coming and not going to fit easily inside. I didn't know he was there at the time. Me and all my friends were way more focused on hanging out for the first time in a year. Anyway, the day later, the neighbours who owned the whole house next door came over mad at us because we ruined her family's chance of being on TV. They were going to be featured on some reality show as a family, but as soon as the producers realised there was going to be a big party next door, with all the guests unwilling to be even caught on camera, they realised it was impossible. The show apparently didn't think it was worth the trouble to rescue after they wasted the day Saturday. She was also mad because the production company had talked to the landlord of our building, I guess, and he said stuff will be fine and that the tenants are quiet. I guess he must have just assumed we'd all be quiet and indoors, as we've been during 2020. Edit to add, this assumption is wrong. See the below edit about what my landlord actually said. Am I the arsehole for having a party that ruined my neighbour's chance to have a family on reality TV? And an edit to describe stuff with my landlord. I just asked him what was up. He got a call from a production company who said they were filming next door to his home and wanted to know if it was fine to get his property in the shot. He said yeah. They asked if he would be quiet and be accommodating of not getting in the shot. He said sure, he was out of town anyway. He didn't realise at the time, it turns out the production company thought my apartment, which he owns, was his home because it is in his name and looks like a house, not a rental property. And when they called asking about his home, he assumed they meant the house where he lives. The confusion happened because he lives on the same street and they referred to the street but not an exact address. Now, setting up film shoots for production companies is very expensive. To get the crew there, you're paying for the crew, the equipment and all this kind of stuff, and turning up on set on the day unprepared like that is on them, in my opinion. To only speak to the landlord and basically get the landlord to speak on behalf of all these people. That seems stupid to me. If I was that production company, I'd be going around knocking on all those doors, making sure I got like signatures or something, which seems kind of entitled anyway. I'd maybe offer them a little compensation as well to do so. But to turn around and say, oh, I sent you letters and we received them all back. Yeah, come on, that's not going to wash with anyone. And you planned this party months ago. You're absolutely not the arsehole in this situation. This is on the production company to me. If you're planning something that expensive, you put in the groundwork at the very beginning and make sure you got signatures or something in writing, because anything could happen, right? And totally ruin your day. So absolutely not the arsehole in this situation to me. But let's check out some comments to see what they say. And we're going to start with Zorkel saying, not the arsehole, you've been planning this for a long time and nobody told you anything about filming going on next door. And Leading Lock says, not the arsehole, besides, what kind of competent reality TV show producers wouldn't want to film a little conflict between neighbours? Or maybe not, because everything on those shows is staged anyway. And says, no one's an arsehole here, you had plans weeks in advance. It's not your fault your landlord didn't notify you about the filming. I'm sure the family that was going to be on is disappointed, but that's not your fault. And Schnelter says, not the arsehole, I think the neighbours are the arseholes for trying to impose their problems on you. If I had something that important coming up, I'd have talked to the actual neighbours rather than the landlord. Besides, if the production company really thought those people had a shot at their own show, the company would have rescheduled. They must not have had the contingency plans for rescheduling, and that's their fault. Their production would have been called off by a thunderstorm just as easily as a party. And we'll have one more from LJ saying, not the arsehole, if you genuinely had no idea about the filming. Who had they spoke to that agreed to it? The landlord can't speak for everyone's individual circumstances. The neighbours should have spoke to you directly if it was so important to them. Wow, lots of good opinions there. And then let's move on to the next story. Now this next story comes from Purple Poetry 630. Am I the arsehole for waiting in my parked car in front of someone's driveway? Now we already know what the verdict is going to be on this one, okay? We already know. We've covered many stories on the opposite side of this one, but I thought it would be an interesting read anyway from someone who thinks that they are entitled to park in front of someone's drive. So, I was picking up my friend from work today, but she was running late, so I stopped a couple of blocks away and parked in front of someone's driveway. I stayed in the car and waited around 5 minutes. At this point, a white lady came out of the house with her child and saying things like, they feel entitled to be here. I had my window partly rolled down. Thinking back now, I should have known she was talking about us. My mum was also in the car, but at the time I wasn't catching on. I was thinking she would have told us to move if she had wanted us to. So I stayed in the car and kept staring at her. She then walked in front of the car and looked at me but didn't say anything. It looked like she was going to get in her car, so I thought we were good. But she suddenly told her daughter they're probably stealing from Walgreens and walked behind my car. Then she takes out her phone and tells her daughter she's going to take a picture. I turned on the car and drove away quickly. It was a small incident and probably not a big deal, but I couldn't help but to feel extremely angry after that because she could have simply told me to move my car. I've been replaying the situation in my head since, and now I'm wondering if I'm frustrated that I was in the wrong but can't admit it. I'm still learning to drive and I was pretty nervous, so that could be the reason this was such a big deal to me. Am I the arsehole here? And there was an edit which said, now I realise I could have just asked her if she wanted me to move, so I was the arsehole. And as I said at the very start, we've covered many stories from the opposite side where someone's been parked in front of their driveway and they're on this saying, am I the arsehole for telling them to move, etc. And the person shouldn't have to tell you to move out of their driveway, off their property. There's a school down the road from me, right? There's a little cul-de-sac right next to the school, and every morning, like if you're walking past to go to the train station or into town or whatever, you see parents parking on people's driveways, turning round in their driveways, and it's so frustrating to see. And if I lived on that street, I'd have put posts up by now so they couldn't do it, but it's so incredibly entitled of people to think that they can just park on their driveways and drop off their kids. I've seen many altercations there of like people getting out their car, parked on someone's driveway right in front of the school and said, oh, I'll just be 2 minutes, I just got to drop my kid off, to the owner of the house, and the owner's just stood there with their jaw basically on the floor, and I think, what the hell? I'm getting frustrated just thinking about it. But Double Blended says, you're the asshole, don't park in a way that prevents people from leaving their home. They shouldn't have to just ask you to move, it's basic manners 101. Don't block exits. And Zeus Mum says, if you're parked in front of someone's driveway, then you're the arsehole. Followed by Dr. Fish Taco saying, you're the arsehole, don't block driveways, and if a stranger was blocking access to my property, I'd be suspicious as well, and would get your plate and a pic of the car, and driver if possible. And just here to comment says, you're the arsehole, my house was vacant for 6 months before I bought it. I deal with jerks every day blocking my driveway, parking in my driveway. My fiance has even been late to work because of it. It's been 2 years and it's still happening. People who block driveways are on my top 5 list of worst kind of people. Most Disaster says, you're the arsehole, never park in front of someone else's driveway. And one more from Shake Slow saying, dude, if someone was parked in my driveway, I'd be ticked too. My property is not a parking space for just anyone. If no one was home, then to me, no harm. However, it looks very suspicious. She was warranted to be concerned with what you were doing. Out here, we are very private people. Even in towns in my area, people are very private. We don't like suspicious activity, and that is sus. You're the arsehole, why don't you just park at your friend's house? Now, I enjoyed reading the story from the opposite end of things, but now we're going to move on to the next story. And this next story comes from a throwaway account. Would I be the arsehole for telling my mum that she should clean the house since she's a stay-at-home mum with free time? Ever since the pandemic started, my dad, 49, has been working remotely from home. Recently, my mum, 48, has been arguing more with my dad, and most of the arguments seem to stem from my mum wanting my dad to do more of the housework now that he is home. For some backstory, before the pandemic, my mum would only see my dad for dinner and a few hours before he went to bed, as he works a 7 to 5 tech job at an insurance company, about an hour away from our house. They have been happily married for 28 years, but during that time, my dad has always been busy with work, and his free time is mainly on the weekends. Even with the pandemic, my dad's schedule has not really changed. My mum decided to retire, stay at home to raise us kids, about 20 years ago, since my dad was making enough to support the family and daycare for 3 kids was getting to be more expensive than my mum's income at the time. Thus, my mum has somewhat single-handedly raised 3 kids. I am the oldest at 27. In terms of housework, my dad mainly mowed the lawn, cleaned the bathrooms, fixed things around the house, and cooked occasionally. He used to be a chef. My mum, on the other hand, did about everything else, including the laundry, balanced the checkbook, shopping and cooking, and kept track of us kids. The present situation. My dad has suggested outsourcing the work to lawn care companies and cleaning services, which my mum begrudgingly called and set up. The services have been performing their jobs over the past month. My mum has been looking for any excuse to cancel these services ever since day one, and today she was not satisfied by the most recent cleaning of the house by the service hired. Having talked to both of them, my mum's issue is that she and my dad are still able bodies and that can get work done around the house, so the services are unnecessary. My dad's issue is that he does not want to spend his free time doing chores, although it wouldn't take up all his free time. My dad has seen some increased income over the last few years due to some promotions and the fact that there is now only 1 kid, in high school, left living at home, so money is not the issue. When questioned further, my mum won't do the work as she feels she shouldn't have to do everything and wants to see my dad contributing to the housework. My dad doesn't want to do some of the chores suggested by my mum as he thinks they're unnecessary or time consuming, i.e. wiping down the baseboards. I have suggested using another service, but my mum is not having any of it. I can agree with points on both sides of the argument, but in this situation, I am leaning more towards my dad's side. Would I be the arsehole for saying that since she is a stay-at-home mum that has a lot of time on her hands these days, that the work falls more on her to complete if she wants it done so badly? Especially since there was initially a solution suggested and implemented the services, but now has failed to meet my mum's standards. Now, I understand no one likes to see their parents arguing about things. No one likes to see that. No one wants to see that because it could potentially lead to bigger things. And maybe that's what OP is seeing in this situation. But to me, in this situation, this is between your parents. If they need counseling of some sort, then that's on them. They need to sort out their own problems without you getting in the middle of it, because that's just not going to help things further. Sounds like you're just poking the fire at the moment to me. They're both grown adults as well as you. Let them deal with their own issues. You are not their counselor. And getting involved just isn't going to help. And I'm going to read 3 comments very quickly because they're pretty much all the same, which says Kermit Star saying, "You would be the arsehole. Your parents' division of labor is absolutely none of your business. Stay in your lane." Spam Law the Great says, "You would be the arsehole, stay out of it. I guarantee this issue is not solely about chores. This is likely a deeper issue related to their marriage." Which Poet says, "You would be the arsehole, stay out of your parents' marriage, not your house, not your marriage, not your business." Followed by many comments which just says, "Not your business." How would you react in that situation though? Would you do something different? I don't know. But let's move on to the next story. And this next story is from Vashero. "Am I the arsehole for telling my in-laws I'll never cook for them because I don't cook for ungrateful people?" Spicy. No pun intended. My in-laws are big food people. They're also the kind of people who complain about food they get behind the cook's back. I always knew this about my in-laws. My husband warned me, told me he had told them to knock it off before, but they won't. So he refuses to engage. They are that ungrateful that when my GMIL grandmother-in-law died, his family were all bitching about the food a neighbor brought out to them. Casserole, salad, sandwiches, pizzas, and saying how bland or meh the food was. The food was tasty and there wasn't a damn thing wrong with it, but that's just them. They never talk like that about each other's food, but as an in-law, you're not exactly exempt from criticism. Another time, they were at a neighborhood barbecue and complained about the stuff other people brought, even saying something about food a 12-year-old prepared. They had made little skewers, and saying it was so obviously a child's cooking, meaning nothing special, as they put it. So anyway, my sister-in-law had her youngest christening recently. She had hired a caterer and they cancelled it last minute. Workers came down with COVID. They ended up asking me if I would help get food together for it. I said no. My husband told them we were busy and didn't have time for it. Sister-in-law said I usually have chill Saturdays and could easily prepare something. He spoke to them and said in no uncertain terms did I owe them food. What followed was they stopped by while he was working and I was home and asking me to make a couple of pizzas for the christening party. I told them they already had their answer. They told me I could get some money thrown my way for it. I told them even if they paid me double the standard price of 2 pizzas, I still wouldn't cook for them with how they treat food made by other people. They told me being part of the family means having to sometime, and I said I would never cook for them because I don't cook for ungrateful people. They are pissed and a few of them called me an arsehole. My husband told me they were acting like kids and I was fine. Part of me feels like the arsehole because I know how they are and I engaged with them. Am I the arsehole? Now, I'm not a big foodie. I do love food, don't get me wrong, but I'll eat anything. I love when I go to a party and people got like bits of cheese with pineapple on sticks. I'm all for that. What are they called? Pineapple hedgehogs. I'm all for nibbles and all that sort of stuff. You bring that to me, I'll eat anything you bring me. But yeah, I totally get where you're coming from. I wouldn't want to cook for someone who's going to be that critical of my food either. It would make me feel so insecure about cooking for them. So yeah, absolutely not the arsehole in this situation. And I think you're totally right for calling them out as well, because they tried pressuring you and bullying you multiple times throughout this story to get you to cook for them, even trying to throw money at you to get them to make a pizza. Maybe just accept the offer, buy a couple of pizzas from a restaurant for half the price and pocket the rest of the money maybe. They still might complain about the food, but you can say you got it from the restaurant, right? Absolutely not the arsehole in this situation to me. But Sleepy Feline says, not the arsehole, stand your ground, they sound awful. You are completely right, there's no point in making anything when you already know they criticize it. Part of me wonders if that's why the caterer cancelled. She knew she'd get a bad review from them. And Word says, not the arsehole. They were told no several times. Only when they continually press did you lay it all out for them. Do not let them bully you. Kudos to your husband for having your back with his family. And ASD says, not the arsehole. I've heard you talk shit about every single thing I've ever seen you eat. Why would I want to cook for you? That's not rhetorical. Please tell me why that would make sense. And one more from Alexis Rose's hand saying, I don't think they dislike other people's cooking. I think they're just very insecure catty people who just have to pump themselves up by putting other people down. Think about it, why would they ask someone else to prepare food when they know they won't like it? Why can't they prepare the food themselves? I mean, it's their party and they are the only good cooks they know. If I knew I wouldn't like the food that a particular person cooks, I sure as hell wouldn't ask them to cater my daughter's christening. I would want to serve good food. Nah, they like the food just fine. They just need something to bitch about to make themselves feel better. Not the arsehole. That's a very good point there. But let's move on to another story. And our next story is from Imagine Having iFunny. Am I the arsehole for ignoring my dad for a week for telling me to man up after I was crying? I-16 male was crying because I didn't get into a soccer team. I was pretty upset at the whole thing and I told my friends about it. Obviously I didn't cry in front of them because I didn't want them to worry about me. I told my girlfriend 16 female about it and she was really sweet and comforted me about it. Later that night I came home after hanging out with my friends and told my parents that I didn't get into the soccer team. I didn't cry at that point. I went to take a shower and began to cry because I was disappointed with myself. I didn't have much time left and to play and it hurt really bad that I didn't get in. I got changed and went to the room to set my alarm for the next day as I was going to begin to do more exercise. I began sobbing again and my sister hears me, so she comes into my room to hug me. She goes to my mum and tells her I'm crying and my mum comforts me as well. Then my dad walks into my room. My dad, 37, asks what's wrong and at first he's making sure I'm alright. I don't usually cry much in front of them because I don't feel comfortable. After that, he talks to me for a bit and starts scolding me for not doing enough. He starts saying I should have ran more, even though I'm the most athletic and have the most stamina in my family. Then he starts lecturing me about how I need to eat more and drink more water, even though I do that too. Finally he says he finds it stupid that I'm crying over it and that I need to man up. He starts giving me that lecture about that back when he was young he didn't cry at all. He didn't cry and all that, trying to sound like a man. That just makes me mad and I start arguing back. Our argument started around 10 and ended at 11. After the whole ordeal, I haven't talked to my dad as I'm still pretty upset at the whole thing. It just makes me mad thinking about it and my mum thinks I'm being unreasonable and that I should talk to him. But my sisters are on my side saying that he shouldn't have said those things. Am I the arsehole? Now, first of all, sorry if you ever do see this, sorry that you didn't get into the team, but this absolute bullshit of men shouldn't cry needs to stop. Toxic masculinity needs to stop. You can cry if you want to, you can show your emotions, and I encourage you to do so. Please do. Never stop for anyone telling you men don't cry or real men don't cry and all that bullshit. Your dad's way of thinking is so out of touch, it's unreal. I've learned a lot about myself through crying and expressing my emotions over the last 5 years or so. And two things randomly that I found really helped me is crying. Well, three things actually. Crying, talking, and exercise. And that's just the way I found it. Obviously, everyone's going to be totally different. But on the crying point in this one, I think it's so important to show your emotions when you need to. But let's check out some of the comments to see what they say. And we'll start with Carpen saying, not the arsehole. He's trying to push his internalized toxic masculinity on you. Crying is healthy, expressing your feelings is healthy. Sometimes you don't get things you want, like making a team or getting your dream job, and it's okay to be upset or even cry over it. To which Zonish says, a good man is first of all a whole human being, with all the emotions and abilities of a good human being. Anyone who demands you cut something out of yourself to be a real man is toxic and broken. OP is not the arsehole and dad needs to be a better person. To which Lilu Pipu replies to this saying, great name by the way, this 100%. We need to normalize men experiencing the full range of human emotion. There is nothing inherently unmanly about crying. It's a bodily function for a reason. If you weren't supposed to do it, your body wouldn't. When my husband cries in front of me, I thank him for being vulnerable and open with me. It's hard to overcome the internalized toxic masculinity ideals he was fed in childhood, and they are damaging to his ability to fully connect and share intimacy. Not the arsehole, maybe you can show him this thread. He isn't a horrible and irredeemable person for parroting back what he has internalized, but maybe he can grow from this argument and learn that emotion does not equal weakness. And another one from something wickedly saying, my guy is one of the most masculine men that I've ever been around, college athlete, coach, etc. With that said, he's one of the most sensitive people that I know and has openly cried when he is with me just because he loves me so much. I love this about him and would not change it for the world. I know how disappointing it is to not get something that you want so badly. I went through this with cheerleading at your age, and it still makes me sad to think about it because I loved it so much. He should have comforted you and then helped you work on getting better for the next year, instead of treating you like you were wrong for being upset and crying. I'm sorry that you did not make the team, and I hope that you find something else that you enjoy as much as this. Thank you so much guys for being here today. I hope you did enjoy today's stories, and if you did, you know what to do. Hit that like, that subscribe, and maybe that notification bell too, as it all massively helps out our channel. And if you want to support the channel further, you can, but always, never any pressure to do so. Don't put yourself under pressure from me by clicking that join button down below for YouTube, or clicking the link in the description for Patreon and joining up there. You are very, very much appreciated. And so is everyone for just spending 20 minutes or so out of your day here with the channel. Thank you so much for your love, support, and time, and I will see you in the next one. Take care, guys. Much love. I've been thinking that I can't let you go. Hey, can you wait a little while?